Hi, I'm Ted London, Senior Research Fellow at the William Davidson Institute. And I'm here with Peter Eliassen, Chief Operating Officer of VisionSpring. Peter, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ted.
Can you tell us a little bit about the background of VisionSpring?
Sure. In 2003, our founder, actually a little before that as well, our founder, Dr. Jordan Cassillo, was working for decades with a variety of organizations in Africa and Latin America, doing some of these massive screening camps where you bring in doctors and they screen 1,000 people in over a few days. And he came to the realization that in the early 2000s that a high proportion of those who come to the camp simply need a pair of reading glasses. And it was kind of ridiculous from his perspective that these people, that 40% of the people he saw would have to wait every few years for a batch of doctors to come through. And so it made much more sense to somehow create a local market where you could empower individuals to become those who do the eye screenings, the simple eye exams, and then afterwards provide for a few days' wage a pair of eyeglasses that could correct their vision. And so he came up with that idea in the early 2000s, and the SCOJO Foundation was born at the time based on two of our founders, Scott and Jordan. And in about 2007, we changed our name to VisionSpring. Since then, we've been working to address the market failure where there's about 750 million people in the world who lack access to affordable eyeglasses. And so our mission is to increase the access to affordable eyeglasses throughout the world. 2/3 of that just need a pair of reading glasses. And so we started off in the beginning with the notion that the hardest to reach parts of the market would present the largest impact opportunity. And so we created the Vision Entrepreneur concept. The idea there is that an individual would have a bag of 20 to 30 pairs of glasses, eye charts, and whatever they need to conduct a basic eye exam, conduct exams, conduct an eye campaign, provide glasses. And we found that although we can reach quite a few people, we can train quite a few vision entrepreneurs, the concept worked, but to get to a place where we had a sustainable program, we were hitting some barriers, and so we had to adjust the model.
VisionSpring originally had the largest operations in India. Can you talk a little bit about the model that you used in India to distribute the reading glasses?
We initially started in the hardest to reach areas where we assumed that the market failure was greatest, right? And along with that, you think, hey, well, there's no competition, so it must be a really easy market. And then you realize that there's no competition for a reason, that it's just a really hard to serve market. And so with these vision entrepreneurs who we created to work primarily in Andhra Pradesh in the beginning, in rural Andhra Pradesh, they were screening and selling between 2 and sometimes 100 glasses a month. So we were heartened by the fact that this concept works. You don't have to have a trained eye care professional to provide basic screenings. Yes, these individuals are not fully trained and licensed, but they can provide a basic screening, which can be kind of like a triage process to either put people into glasses that we could provide, or pass them into a referral to a local specialist who can provide more advanced eye care.
So you ran this model in India for a number of years, and I know now you've gone to El Salvador and have launched a new model. Can you talk about sort of the learnings from India and how that informed the new model you've developed in El Salvador?
Sure, and back and forth as well. There's quite a few shared learnings. That concept of the vision entrepreneur, after kind of proving the fact that can work, we brought that to El Salvador as well, and just about a year and a half afterwards, and that was through a connection that we had of a nonprofit called Asaprasar that seemed like an excellent partner in what they were doing at the time with public health. And so we used the same model of vision entrepreneur. There's very different market makeup in that India is 25% urban, 75% rural. Total opposite when you go to Central America, where it's 75% urban, 25% rural. But the market failure is significant in the surrounding areas around those urban zones. And so we worked on that rural entrepreneur model for about 5-6 years, and then saw that the similar frustration that we had in both India and El Salvador, where that triage process of screening, where you could provide reading glasses and sunglasses to those who kind of fit the mold, the other 30-40% needed something more advanced. And so it was frustrating for our team in that I can help you, you, and you, but sorry, not you guys, right? You have to go to this other place. Here's where it is. It's a local clinic. And there's a reason why people haven't gone to that clinic. in the first place, right? Maybe it's distance, maybe it's cost. And so we decided that, that frustration of just sending people away that they're not going to go anywhere, why don't you bring them in-house? Why don't we have our own medical experts and our own optometrists in our own stores, which at the beginning was just in our offices, right, where the entrepreneurs worked, and try to take that 30–40% that we're sending away and bring them in-house. And getting that going in about 2007, we saw that there's something there. That on the city blocks in Santa Ana, El Salvador, there were the few customers that go to optical shops. There's probably 20 optical shops, and they had their 3 to 5 customers a day. It's a high margin, low volume approach. And something was happening when we had 100, 150, and 200 people at our stores the day that we had the optometrist visiting. And so it really kind of planted the seed of this is something that could probably work.
So you've now been at this for a number of years in El Salvador. How has the model worked out? Are you pleased? What happens next?
We were pleased in that we had the concept and we presented the idea to the IDB, the opportunities for the majority part of the Inter-American Development Bank, and they provided a small grant to help us launch that. Here's this idea. Can we take it, prove a concept, and create 5 stores in Latin America? In El Salvador that can achieve what we're saying it has the potential to. And we grew from a few thousand units a year. For a while there, we had about 2,000, 3,000 units sold a year with about a $10,000 loss. That was El Salvador for 5–6 years, right? And all of a sudden, we were shooting up to 10, 15, 20,000 units, and our revenue went from 30,000 to 75,000 to 300,000 to 500,000. Now this year will be about $1 million in revenue in El Salvador, and that's just from professionalizing and refining the model over the years.
So you have the stores now. What role, if any, do the vision entrepreneurs play in this model?
Before, we leaned heavily on the vision entrepreneurs as being the main conduit or the main driver of the business and of our impact. Now they play a kind of a team role in that they are not the unit of operations, that we're defining ourselves as number of entrepreneurs, this is our success. It's more of the unit. And so we have a hub and spoke, the hub being the store in that middle income market. And there are a varying number of entrepreneurs and of different kinds of levels of entrepreneurs who work in the store, right? And I'd say in our recent analysis, about 2/3 of our overall business comes from those outreach campaigns, in that entrepreneurs are working with churches, mayors, companies, a variety of sites, kind of host sites where we conduct a campaign, and same process as before, we're screening and providing reading glasses and sunglasses, but now we're bringing optometrists sometimes with us, not in all the camps, but at a percentage of those. And if not, then we can refer them back to our store, back to our host site in that city. And so the entrepreneurs play a crucial role in driving like 3/4 of our business, which is a very different approach than what we see in the established marketplace, allowing us to grow the category, which is kind of the biggest value add that we can bring to the market, as well as increasing the access to glasses in the harder to reach areas. You
started in India, we'll call it VisionSpring 1.0, which was primarily women entrepreneurs going out into the areas and having eye camps and selling glasses, sort of a rural distribution network. And then you brought that model to El Salvador. It evolved over time. We'll call it VisionSpring 2.0, more of a hub and spoke. Have you been able to take that VisionSpring 2.0 back to India in any way?
We have. And a few years ago, actually, we had a map team from Michigan that went out, I think it was 2 years ago, and helped us lay the groundwork for the same concept of, here's what we think works, and we see it working in Central America. There's no reason why it wouldn't work in India. It's just finding the right place to position yourself. And so we've done that. About 2 years ago we started, and now we have some support from USAID to grow that concept throughout the country. And we have a great team that's able to execute and scale. And so we have twice as many of the hub and spoke units in India as we do in El Salvador at this point, and with the potential to grow that much more, because there's just that much more capacity in India to grow that model.
And I know VisionSpring's not stopping here. You've sort of had model 1.0, 2.0. Now you're beginning to think about maybe VisionSpring version 3.0. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
That's internal operations thus far. We've had 1.0, which is the Vision Entrepreneur. 2.0, again, is internal. It's focused on that hub and spoke. And all the while, we've been working with partners. and finding that right way to work with our partners. And we've had fantastic luck in being able to be associated with BRAC, one of the largest NGOs in the world, and their network of 85,000 community health workers. And we just signed a deal with them to train 35,000 total health workers, which will distribute 1.7 million eyeglasses the next few years, which is really exciting for us. And so we've been working with smaller partners, larger partners like BRAC on the side, as well as on our own, because we know that we can't attack this market of 750 million on our own. It's the sustainable model of having the hub and spoke is not the fastest way to do it. And so partners are a necessary part of this. And so the 3.0 is, how do you combine those two elements? How do you combine the leveraging the network, or whether it's distribution points at retail outlets, whether it's community health workers, how do you leverage an existing network and partner that with a hub and spoke, which should feed off each other and work and enhance each other's ability to succeed. And looking at newer markets like Rwanda and Morocco, and how can we work with the government and bring in other private sector players as well as an ecosystem, and create, using some of our previous successes and ideas and learnings and failures, and combining it into a model that can have a more holistic approach for a whole entire region or entire country.
So, looking back now on the evolution of VisionSpring over the past few years, from sort of 1.0 to 2.0 to now thinking about 3.0, if you were if an entrepreneur thinking about doing this from the get-go, doesn't want to necessarily go through the same learning curve you have, what advice might you share with them based on your experience?
I speak with quite a few social enterprises and students who are interested in new ideas and pursuing new approaches, and I think one of the failures, or what the challenges I see, is to overthinking. And I see a lot of people spinning their wheels, for months and months to create the perfect plan. And then they get on the ground, everything was different, my plan was so perfect, and it just didn't end up like that. And I think it's kind of like the lean startup mentality, right? Is how do you have, you have your concept, you have your metrics, you have your idea of success, right? Because you have to have that. What's success for what I'm about to do? And then test it. You have hypotheses, assumptions, go out there, get in the field, get in the market, get your product, service in the hands of customers, right? Watch that interaction, see how the whole dynamic works, right? That will probably change most of your initial assumptions, right? And then go back to the drawing board, right? And then kind of rethink, set your new goal of success of what's this next phase, what can we learn here? And I think on the side, that's more on the operations side, and more on the kind of the big picture goal setting is careful with the whole, I'll be profitable in a year, and over-promising certain elements of, I can deliver X and X units or cost coverage or profitability in this much time. Hang on, right? Because if you set the bar too high for yourself, then you're setting yourself up for a pretty challenging situation. So I think if you can find, and I know it's a fine, delicate balance of attracting enough capital to get going, and so with that you have to have some lofty goals and some aspirational things to shoot for. So it's kind of a delicate balance of not over-promising and making sure to test and get on the ground as much as possible.
Peter, thanks for talking to us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.